The primary is over, and the slate of candidates are set for the general election in November. Who's running? What are the issues for 2024? What does this mean for the Commonwealth and the U.S.? It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Caville, and you're joining us for After the Primary Review. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Caville. I want to thank you for joining us, as you always do, as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, from none other than WNSB Hot 91, the soul of BA. Well, listen, we hope that you enjoyed your Juneteenth celebration on last week. Definitely a holiday that we believe is long overdue. Many of us in the African American community have celebrated Juneteenth for years with parades and festivals and festivities, but now it's a federal holiday, and the entire country gets an opportunity to understand and learn about the contributions of African Americans to this country, and also to learn a little bit more about their history, our history, American history. So again, we hope that all of you enjoyed your Juneteenth holiday. I also like to give a special shout out to everyone on the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier that's stationed here now at Norfolk Naval Station Base in Norfolk, Virginia. I had the opportunity to be the first ever keynote speaker for their Juneteenth program. Again, it was phenomenal to see all of the sailors there, and the program itself and what they're doing is absolutely commendable. And again, hats off to all the sailors. I'd like to thank Commander Burgess, who's commanding that phenomenal fleet. Also, Big XO, Captain Williams, Christopher Williams, and also LSC that escorted me there. I thank you so much for being such a great escort while I was there on the ship. Again, phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to view on Family Day any of our military bases, I mean, hats off. As a veteran of the U.S. Army, I was highly impressed with our Navy, and just everyone who is a volunteer in our all-volunteer service, hats off to you as well. We have the greatest nation and the greatest military in the world. So not only that, what happened in last week, we had Juneteenth, but we had something called the primary election. And the primary election was not just, it's usually a tune-up for the general election. And, you know, not a lot of people usually vote in the primary, but it's extremely important to vote. And with that being the case, the primary itself really helped us to see and clear up who's going to be in the general election. So let's take a look. In this show, we're going to dive in and take a look at the results of the primary election, some of the issues that came up, and also what is the slate for 2024 November. And then we're going to shift and take a look at the issues. Listen, we've got the conferences coming up for each party, the Republican and Democratic conference that's coming up, where they're going to officially nominate their candidates. Not only that, but we've got the first debate, presidential debate, coming up just this week. And let me tell you, 2024 is an important year, probably the most important of some of our lifetime. A lot of things are happening in the world right now. A lot of things are happening in our country. And we're going to take a look at a Pew Research study in the second half of the show and take a look at some of the issues that are out there and the issues that, you know, are really dividing our country. Because at the end of the day, you know, we can agree to disagree, but we got to make sure that we maintain the house. And that's the house of democracy, which is housed here in the United States of America. So look, let's get right into it. So let's take a look. According to Wavy TV 10 here in Hampton Roads, of course, early voting started in person May 3rd. And on that, it was getting geared up for our election that we had here in June. So with that, we saw that there were both Republicans and also Democrats candidates on the ballot in order to find out who would be the person to represent their party in the general election. Now, just to kind of break this down a little bit, for those of you that went to the polls and voted, you had to say that you were a registered Democrat or Republican or voted in either one. But you're only voting one, and you voted for the candidate in order that for your party that you chose to represent you in that election. Now, with this, we're going to take a look at some big races, and then we're going to break down those races and then break down the issues moving forward. So in the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate, we had 5 candidates running in 2024 for the 2024 Virginia Republican primary, according to Wavy. And that included Hung Cao, Edward Garcia, Jonathan Emott, of course, C.L. Chuck Smith, and also candidate Scott Parkinson. And these individuals ran to challenge the incumbent and a former governor, U.S. Senator Tim Kaine. And, of course, there was no Democratic primary in June for the Democratic nomination for that. Now, with that, we have also 2 in this area. Now, of course, every congressional seat is up for re-election, but in this area, congressional seat 1 and 2, District 1 and District 2, District 1 held by Congressman Whitman, and also District 2 held by Jen Kiggans, which both of them encompass part of Hampton Roads. And with that coming out, we found that there were several candidates, and more specifically in the 2nd Congressional District, Missy Smazel and Jake Denton both ran to represent the Democratic Party in that particular election. So the results came in, and Hung Cao, who is a military veteran, he won the Republican primary to represent the Republican Party. Now, I want to note here, we had close to 300,000 people that voted statewide for this primary. That shows us we're going to have a very high turnout for 2024. I want to note those numbers. In District 1, we had Leslie Mehta, a Democrat, who won almost 2-1 over her challenger, Herbert Jones, and Missy Smazel, who won almost close to 3-1 over Jake Denton. So she is these 2 women are representing the Democratic Party, and that is phenomenal. We have 2 phenomenal candidates, 2 phenomenal women representing the Democratic Party to challenge District 1 and District 2 representatives. Now, I would like to make an announcement here on the show, and that is none other than the U.S. Senate, U.S. Senator Tim Kaine agreed to 3 debates for this particular cycle, 1 in Northern Virginia, 1 in Richmond area, 1 in Hampton Roads. Well, I'm excited to announce that Norfolk State University, in partnership with Wavy 10 and Nexstar Media Group, has been chosen for the site for the Hampton Roads U.S. Senate debate. That makes Norfolk State the 2nd time we've been chosen for the Hampton Roads debate here in this area. First in 2020 with Senator Mark Warner and his challenger Daniel Gabe, and now with U.S. Senator Tim Kaine and his challenger Hung Cao. That shows that Norfolk State is become the place to have these very important discussions, these very important topics debated over, and not just debated, but hopefully some solutions to come out of it. When many people vied for this particular opportunity, but overwhelmingly our institution was chosen for the place to be. So we're excited about that, and you should be excited as an alum, as a stakeholder, as a listener, that this great HBCU has been chosen to have these very important statewide conversations that will impact us, not just on the federal level, but locally, right here in Hampton Roads. The city of Norfolk is a great place. This is the place to be. Also like to note that Norfolk State was also the only institution to be able to host a gubernatorial roundtable, again, in partnership with Wavy TV 10. And with that was significant because in 2022, both candidates at that time did not agree to any other debates, only one that was held, but that was it. We had an Appalachian Law School, that is. But they agreed to our roundtable discussion. And you can see all those online. You can go on YouTube, you can go on wavy.com and the search bar and just type in, Norfolk State Senate debate, Norfolk State Wavy Senate debate 2020 and Norfolk State roundtable, and you'll see it. So again, a phenomenal opportunity for the Spartan Nation, a phenomenal opportunity for the citizens here in the city of Norfolk, and again, a phenomenal opportunity for the Commonwealth as a whole, as we are and have become the place to have these very, very important discussions. So with that, I want us to take a look also at what's happening around the Commonwealth itself. Now, of course, we found that, in our area, these are the candidates that are running and challenging the incumbents in the congressional races. But also there were some other races that were, that had some weight around it. As a matter of fact, one of the high-profile races was one where they had a little endorsement there, and it was a little friction in the Republican Party. And that was where former President Donald Trump actually supported someone else against the incumbent, Republican Representative Bob Good. He supported for State Senator John McGuire. And the reason why he did that is because Representative Bob Good didn't really agree with a lot of his policy and went against the former president and some votes. And when you see that the former president is on a revenge tour, right? But not just him, but Kevin McCarthy, because he voted to oust him as Speaker, which they did, part of the Freedom Caucus. He also supported his challenger. And right now, from last I looked, there was like 311 votes. 311 votes. I want to repeat that. 311 votes separating these two candidates. That was the margin. So they're recounting those votes because it was basically a 0.4% difference. So it's an automatic recount, but more than likely Representative Bob Good probably does not have the votes to overcome. But stranger things have happened. But we could look for probably State Senator John McGuire to be the candidate in that particular district. And not just the candidate, but because of how the district is situated. He'll more than likely be the new Republican congressional representative for that area. Also, again, as we stated before, in this area, Leslie Mehta prevailed over retired Army Colonel Herb Jones. Eugene Vindman, who has a formidable opponent in the 7th Congressional District. And when we talk about also what took place, State Senator Suhas won over Delegate Dan Helmer after, some things that came up in the campaign itself. So let's just say, campaigning, hey, it has its ups, it has its downs, but it's not for the weary at all. So congratulations to all those individuals that actually won their primary to run in the general election. So we're stacked. We're stacked for November. And not only are we stacked, but the moment after the election, after the results the next day, guess what? That's when things started to get, the line started to be drawn in the sand. Now, according to Waving, we find where there were a few comments that were made. So here in the 1st and 2nd Congressional District, Missy Cotter Smazel, she of course won the Democratic primary for the 2nd Congressional District, facing Republican Jen Kiggans in the general election. And Kiggans shared a statement on Tuesday, and it reads, Missy Smazel is an out-of-touch liberal activist who would be nothing more than a rubber stamp for Joe Biden and the Democrats' destructive policies. So this November, voters in Southeast Virginia, here in Hampton Roads, will once again reject Washington's liberal failed agenda and reelect Jen Kiggans, a common-sense conservative with a proven track record of delivering results for families, veterans, and seniors. Virginians are tired of the Democrats taking our country and our Commonwealth in the wrong direction and will come out in November to vote against weak leadership and misguided policies. Missy is the wrong choice for Virginia and the wrong choice for America, unquote. That's from Congresswoman Jen Kiggans. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of information in there, and it lets you know exactly where Congresswoman Jen Kiggans stands. So you see in that statement, it's not just the candidate, but they're also attacking the sitting president because it's a presidential, of course, election year. They're attacking the policies and the agenda of the Democrats. They're also bolstering their points and their stance where it comes to leadership. So, and also going against the candidate saying out of touch, liberal activists and the like. These are all buzzwords. But this is what candidates are going to do. So you're going to hear a lot more of this. You're going to see a lot of commercials going back and forth. So get ready for that. But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what have these candidates, what have done for me? What have the sitting politicians done for me? How are the agendas affecting me personally and also the community? But let's take a look also at the statement made by current U.S. Senator Tim Kaine after he found out that the Republican Hung Cao won the U.S. Senate primary race to represent the Republicans. He is a Navy veteran. He's endorsed by former President Trump. He beat 4 Republican challengers to win his primary. And early results showed him with a substantial lead compared to his other opponents. So he's the guy. But Senator Kaine released a statement and said, quote, "I've been standing up for Virginians for 40 years as a civil rights lawyer, public servant representing my city, Commonwealth, and country. As your senator, I'll keep standing up for an economy that works for all, affordable health care, reproductive freedom, enhanced career and technical education, and strengthening our military and allies while supporting our troops, veterans, and families." He says, quote, "I'm facing an opponent who called a Stoughton newspaper podunk and claimed that traveling from Northern Virginia to Abington for a candidate forum would be ridiculous. How elitist," he says. "I'll stand up for you because I always show up for you." So again, that is current incumbent and Democrat U.S. Senator representing the entire state, the entire Commonwealth, U.S. Senator Tim Kaine. Now again, he is bolstering his stance. He's bolstering the party, bolstering the things that they stood up for: economy, affordable health care, reproductive freedom, which is going to be major issues coming up for this year's 2024 election. And we're going to talk about that in a few moments in the second half of the show. So the lines are drawn. So let's get ready, but make sure that you can get ready for it. What I mean by that, make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure that you can cast your vote, and make sure that you yourself can have your voice heard. So if you're not registered to vote, keep in mind you can still register to vote. As a matter of fact, according to elections.virginia.gov, the Department of Elections here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the first day of in-person early voting at your local registrar's office starts Friday, September 20th. September 20th is the first day you can start voting. Huge. And the deadline to register to vote or update a registration is October 15th. So you can register, you can update your voting. Now, you can register after this day through Election Day and vote using provisional ballot, but why go through that? The option is there, but why go through it? Register to vote now. You've got until October 15th in order to do so. And the deadline to apply for a ballot to be mailed to you is October 25th. And your registration offices open early voting Saturday, October 26th. And the last day for in-person early voting at your local voter registrar's office, November 2nd. That's Saturday at 5 p.m. And that's all getting us ready for what we call Super Tuesday, Election Day, November 5th. So listen, we're here. The lines are drawn in the sand. The candidate slate is created. We're there. But make sure your voice is heard. Listen, I love early voting. I love what we've done here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, providing an opportunity to vote not just early in person, but also mail-in ballots. It's when more people have an opportunity to cast their vote or access the ballot box, trust me, our democracy works better. The Republicans fought against it. We have, we talked about it on this show. The records are clear. But guess what? They found that early voting works as well. It works for everybody. Republicans, Democrats, independents, younger voters, older voters, voters that are working, middle-aged voters who have jobs and so forth, careers. It works. So, but make sure your voice is heard. If you're not registered to vote, go out, register at your local voter registration, registrar's office. Take a friend with you. Take a family member with you. Go register to vote to make sure your voice is heard, because 2024 is a big year to vote. As a matter of fact, in Wavy, one of my colleagues, Jesse Richmond, who's a professor at ODU. He and I have done some commentary together as it relates to this particular, as it relates to politics. He says that, when you take a look at it, he urges voters to make their voices heard in primaries as well. He said it's an opportunity to shape who the candidates are in November. Well, that's done, but also another professor and legal analyst, Anthony Hill, Anthony Hill, who's an election worker in Norfolk, he said November's a big one. November's the big one, he said. That's when we're going to see a lot of people coming. And he said it's great to see a lot of people out here voting, even though, again, primary voting was low, which is historical, was going to be that. The numbers showed that we're going to get a higher voting in 2024 in November. So, again, make sure your voice is heard. Make sure you're coming out and voting. But what are the issues? What are the issues that candidates are going to run on, and what are the issues that affect you? According to a report by Pew Research Center, and this was published June 6th, this year, it says cultural issues in the 2024 election: immigration, gender identity, racial diversity, and views of a changing society. It tells us that the 2024 presidential campaign is taking place amid intense debates over such topics as just reported: immigration, growing racial and ethnic diversity in the U.S., the changing American family, crime, and reproductive issues. As a matter of fact, it took a poll from the research, and it showed when looking at these issues from Biden supporters, Trump supporters, and the gap in between, how are voters seeing this and measuring this? So when we take a look at topics sometimes grouped together as culture wars or woke issues, we find that there's a stark difference. As a matter of fact, when we take a look at gun ownership, according to this study, gun ownership does more to increase safety by allowing law-abiding citizens to protect themselves. Overwhelmingly, 86% of Trump supporters say yes. 23% of Biden supporters said no. When we take a look at the legacy of slavery and whether it affects the position of black people in America society today, a great deal or a fair amount, 27% of Trump supporters said no. The legacy of slavery has no impact on black people today. 79% of Biden supporters said it absolutely does. When we take a look at America's openness to people from all over the world being essential to who we are as a nation, 87% of Biden supporters say yes. We are a nation of immigrants, so yeah, it does. 36% of Trump supporters said absolutely not. When we take a look at criminal justice system in this country, generally not tough enough on criminals, 81% of Trump supporters said no. Criminal justice system is not tough enough on criminals. 40% of Biden supporters said the same thing, less than half. Now, we've heard this before. Tough on crime, tough on crime, tough on crime. Lock them up, throw away the key. And we found that simply didn't work. We found that during the Reagan administration, the Bush administration. It didn't work. But being smart on crime, educating, building communities, investing, providing jobs as opposed to dilapidation and depression, which leads to crime, that actually works. So, again, you're going to see these buzzwords. You're going to see where it impacts how people think and how they vote. Let's take a look at religion. Should religion be kept separate from government policies? 86% of Biden supporters said yes. 56% of Trump supporters said yes. And finally, the gains women have made in society have come at the expense of men. Only 9% of Biden supporters say yes, it has. 25% of Trump supporters said the gains of women have made in society have come at the expense of men. Once again, this survey shows, when it talks about culture wars, being woke, and things of that nature, how each side is showing how they're going to vote and what they're looking for their candidates to stand on. Let's take a look at the sharp divide between Biden and Trump supporters over the need to deport undocumented immigrants in the U.S. Now, all voters said that, we do need to deport them, but only 11% of Biden supporters said so. of Trump supporters, 63% said that there should be a national law enforcement effort to deport undocumented immigrants currently living in the U.S. Now, I will say this. When we look at immigration, I believe immigration, the economy, and the Middle East conflict. Now, of course, we have conflict in Eastern Europe between Ukraine and Russia, but I believe that has been going on for so long, a lot of voters and a lot of citizens kind of don't really think about it because we don't see it. But what we do see is the conflict in the Middle East. And I believe that the issues of immigration, the issues of the economy, and the issue of the conflict in the Middle East will be three of the most defining factors that we find in this election. Because that's what people see. It affects all of us. Now, reproductive freedom and rights, with the rolling back of Roe versus Wade by the U.S. Supreme Court, that's going to impact a certain demographics of voters. And it's a large voting demographic, especially women. But those three affects everyone. As a matter of fact, when we take a look at the abortion, legal abortion, access to contraception, and the views on it, a registered voter who said that abortion should be legal in all states, of that, 42% of Biden supporters say yes. Legal in most states, 46%. Overall, 88%. Trump supporters, only 9% in all states. In legal in most cases. I'm sorry, not states, but cases. Legal in all cases. 28% said in legal cases, most legal cases, and 9% said in all legal cases, so 38%. Ultimately, 88% of Biden supporters support legal abortion and access to contraception, whereas 38% of Trump supporters do. And that's actually for legal abortion. When you talk about access to birth control, condoms, and other forms of contraceptives, you find as a larger group, 93% of Biden supporters say yes, 66% of Trump supporters say yes, whether it's a good thing for society to make it available. So again, you're going to have division, and that's another area where you find division. When it comes to mental health has been in our conversation, our dialogue here in America for some time, especially since the pandemic, and rightfully so. A lot of us have been dealing with issues, and we kind of just push it off. But it's really something that can be diagnosed and dealt with through counseling, therapy, medication, so that we can be a whole person, a better person. The question was, of the registered voters who say that more people openly discussing their mental health and well-being is good for society, 94% of Biden supporters said yes. 79% of Trump supporters said yes. That's a lot. So it shows that America, we're very much aligned on discussing mental health issues in our country amongst us. But those are just a few issues that we find, according to the Pew Research report that was released a couple of weeks ago in June. But it's going to be more issues. It's going to be more things that are happening in our community, in our Commonwealth, in our country, and across the world that's going to impact 2024. But the question becomes, will you make your voice heard? I urge you to go out, register to vote. Continue to listen to the show Stay the Water and the Claville Report, which airs at 12:30 as well on this station, where we bring you those issues. On Stay the Water, we bring you movers and shakers and policymakers to discuss issues important to you and the community. Continue to support, and we'll continue to inform you so that you can make a more well-informed decision. Until next time, God bless, be great, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Claville.